in the Baptist faith, and my girlfriend is Catholic. And my question is that number one, I have two questions because we went to a mass. I went to mass with her on several occasions, and I didn't take communion because I was not in the Catholic faith. Now, when she came and visited the church with me at my church, she took communion with me at my church. So my question is that can a Baptist take communion at Catholic Mass? And secondly, can a Baptist and a Catholic person, two people, have a relationship?
Okay, thanks. Let me answer the second question first. You can absolutely be in a relationship with a Catholic, 100%. I hope you do, right? That's wonderful. And you could, if it moves that far, even marry a Catholic without becoming a Catholic. So that's absolutely acceptable. And if you do, I would say, watch out. A lot of Baptists have become Catholics by marrying Catholics. So
right.
Buyer beware what you're getting yourself into, And I'm saying this with a grin on my face and a kind of a wink and a nod because we kind of like it when people marry Catholics and become Catholic themselves.
Sure.
I think that happened to you, didn't it, Tom?
Sure did.
So that's
did.
all right. So yeah,
Yep.
You can absolutely do that. If you do date a Catholic and ultimately marry a Catholic, the Catholic Church would ask that the wedding take place in a Catholic church in front of a Catholic priest. Could also have a Baptist minister there at the same time, and with the proper permission, could even perhaps be held at a kind of neutral location, but if you will, between Baptist and Catholic. But the presence of a Catholic priest is absolutely necessary for the Catholic party to be considered validly married. So they just keep that in mind. And there are other things that you would have to be aware of, like Catholics have a pretty distinct doctrine of human sexuality that obviously impinges on marital life in ways that that you need to be aware of going in. That I'm committing myself to this because otherwise I'd be kind of forcing my spouse to violate her conscience. So know about that. Now, as far as the communion is concerned, under normal circumstances, a Baptist should not receive communion in a Catholic church, and it's not because understand why. It's not because the Catholic Church is judging you and saying you're a bad person or we think you're deficient in some way. That's not the rationale at all. Here's the rationale. Let me give you an analogy. If you had a friend who, say, had cancer and they were prescribed chemotherapy, and you came by and said, well, can I have some of your chemotherapy? Well, obviously that's not safe for you to do. Right? That's not that's not safe for you. You need a doctor's prescription, so to speak. Okay, and the Catholic position is that communion is inherently dangerous, even for Catholics. Right? Because St. Paul talks about this in the book of 1 Corinthians. He says, if you receive the body and blood of the Lord in an unworthy manner, then you are guilty of sinning against the body and blood of the Lord, and therefore communion doesn't do you any good. Right? Now, a Catholic can also fall under that danger. If a Catholic goes to communion and he's not properly disposed, then he's not doing himself any favors. Now, the way you can ensure that you're properly disposed is you avail yourself of the sacrament of confession. So if a Catholic has doubts about his interior state, he or she goes to the priest, he confesses his sins, he receives absolution, he gets forgiveness for his sins, and then he knows, phew, I'm safe, I can go to communion. Now, confession is a lot of things, but one thing it is it's kind of like, and this is a bad analogy because it makes it sound like it's clinical or uncomfortable. It's a little bit like going in front of the judge or the magistrate. It's also like going in front of the doctor or like your father. So it's not a perfect analogy, but the magistrate or the judge analogy serves us for this reason, that if you have a case that you bring in front of a judge, you just can't bring it in front of any old judge. You have to bring it in front of a judge who has jurisdiction. If you're living in Greenville, South Carolina, you're not going to bring your case to a judge in Birmingham, Alabama. You're going to bring it to a judge in Greenville, South Carolina, who's got jurisdiction over your particular issue, right? And in the case of the Catholic sacraments, a Catholic priest only has jurisdiction over Catholics. He has no right to pass judgment over non-Catholics. And so sometimes non-Catholics get offended that we say don't come to communion in the Catholic Church, and they say, well, you're judging us. And actually, the reality is the exact opposite. It's rather, no, we absolutely have no right to judge you whatsoever at all, precisely because we are refraining from passing judgment on you. We're not forming the judgment that you're bad or unworthy. We are forming the judgment that we can form no judgment.
Yeah.
And the only person the Catholic priest has the right to judge is a Catholic. You say, Anders, where's that in the Bible? Go look again at chapter 5, 6, and 7 of 1 Corinthians. Paul tells the Corinthians, judge people who are inside the church. Absolutely, judge them. Judge them up and down, right, in a certain context about worthiness for communion.
Sure.
But don't judge people outside the church. Absolutely do not do it. Well, since you're not part of the Catholic Church, we're not going to judge you. And because we're not going to judge you, you're not subject to the church's jurisdiction, and you don't have that safety of the church validating that you're properly disposed to receive a communion that might otherwise be harmful to you. The other reason why we would discourage a Baptist from receiving communion is that, in a Baptist church, a lot of times receiving communion just means, hey, I love Jesus, he loves me, I'm accepted, I'm born again, I'm going to heaven when I die. This is a beautiful witness to that fact. Well, that's true in the Catholic Church, but a lot else is true besides. One of the most important things about receiving communion in the Catholic Church is it's the way we demonstrate symbolically that we believe everything the Catholic Church says. Going to communion is kind of like saluting the flag of your country. St. Paul calls it the sacrament of the Church's unity, right? It expresses our unity as the body of Christ, showing that we all believe the same thing. Now, if you're a Baptist and you don't believe the Catholic faith, again, I'm not judging you from that. That's your conscience. That's up to you, right? But why would I invite you to salute the flag, of a church that you have refrained from joining? It'd be kind of like inviting you to tell a lie about yourself, to yourself and the world, saying by your actions, I believe what you don't actually believe, right? And again, no judgment here.
Right.
It's just, why would I invite you to perjure yourself in public like that? So for those reasons, the church says, not a good idea for a Baptist to receive communion in the Catholic Church. For different reasons, the church also says a Catholic should not receive communion in a Baptist church, principally because, again, that issue of belonging, going to communion for a Catholic is a way of saying, this is where I'm planting my flag, so to speak. And for a Catholic, they've planted their flag in the Catholic Church because they think that's the church that Christ founded. And look, we love Baptists. My grandfather was a Baptist. My great-grandfather founded the Flatwood Baptist Church in Northport, Alabama. I mean,
wow.
Nothing against Baptists, you understand. But as a Catholic, I've planted my flag in the Catholic Church. I can't plant it in two different places,
There you go.
So that's the story.